Hello YouTube, I'm Lelody and welcome to my channel Lelody's Lore. Today we had a pretty big trailer drop in Honkai Star Rail, our second ever Fables about the stars. This one gives us so much information about the Lord Ravagers, and there's also a couple of Chinese exclusive things that were published today also that I want to talk about. I was literally in the middle of working on like a whole other video about like the equilibrium and like the details on what the Golden River actually is, but I've had to drop it because this was a very big deal. There is so much stuff in it to break down that I don't even want to talk for very long. I'm just going to get straight into it. I don't have a set script for this video. I just have a bunch of notes I've been working on all day, so I'm just gonna...
The last time I was on the Yuche.
So the Yuche is a ship. It's the one that has the Cloud Peer telescope that Fu Xuan used in the Third Abundance War to send that giant arrow that I'm sure most people are familiar with. That ship is also a pretty big fan of the High Cloud Quintet because during their era they were attacked by the Kedu Mirage. The area that they're in may be the Decalite Reflection Barrier as well. And recently this place also divined something about Ironforge. They were going to attack the Bronze Forge. So the Yuche should actually have some plot relevance in the coming story.
Was centuries ago.
Pity that you now come not as a hero, but a prisoner. Put the abundance in their grave.
So putting the abundance in the grave is the previously stated goal of Luocha and Jingliu.
Empty talk.
The divination matrix will naturally determine whether your words are trustworthy.
So the person talking is that spirally shape, and that should be General Yaong of the Yuche.
Fine. As we always say on the Xianzhou, seeing is believing. A war of gods has already begun.
We can see a lot of the red digital effects that we are quite familiar with now on Amphorius. That should be the Black Tide. It seems to be like a digital effect that only harms the inorganic life, which lines up with what we already knew about Iron Tomb attacking technologically advanced civilizations. A lot of people say that this is the anti-organic equation, but I actually don't think it is the anti-organic equation, because as far as we know with the anti-organic equation, it's usually a mental thing that causes the affected inorganic people to target the organic people. It's not really something that is visual as far as we know, and it's also not something that should be corrupting like physical matter and physical spaces. To me, I think it functions a bit more like the fragmentum, but it's obviously probably not actually the fragmentum. So the target of Iron Tomb doesn't seem to be exclusively the organic beings. It seems like Iron Tomb targets the inorganic beings predominantly, which doesn't really line up with what we know about the anti-organic equation. If anything, this looks a bit more like an anti-inorganic equation, but truthfully, it's probably just something exclusive to Iron Tomb and not the anti-organic equation or even the fragmentum. It could be something similar to the fragmentum, but it's still probably not the exact same.
In the Abacus's calculated future.
Okay, this line is really interesting about the Abacus's calculated future, because firstly, how did Jingliu get access to the Abacus before coming to the Xianzhou to have this prophecy? And secondly, we know from readables that it's not really possible to divine the future of the aeons using the Jade Abacus anyway. And we also know that to divine the future of Yaoshe in particular is something that has devastating consequences and is basically as bad as one of the 10 unpardonable sins. So if Jingliu actually has used the Jade Abacus to try and divine Yaoshe's fate in any way, that is extremely bad news for her and potentially the people around her, and it doesn't seem like there's been any consequences, so I can't really say that I believe she has actually used the Jade Abacus for this. I think there are some shenanigans going on that I will get into.
The Lord Ravager's wish will be fulfilled.
So here the subtitles do clarify that this is in fact Iron Tomb that they're talking about.
and an aeon will fall.
So again, the subtitles here clarified that that was about Nous. And if Nous is dying, suddenly my aeon ratio theory doesn't look so crazy.
This is a chess game between gods, as each...
So about the chess game as well, my next video, I'm going to be talking a lot more about that because I think it's got a lot to do with the equilibrium, and so does the golden blood. And I think they're a very big player, so keep your eyes out for that. I'm quite excited to be working on that.
piece falls to counter the next. Why not take advantage of it for our own goals?
The other thing as well about the Jade Abacus is that if she had used the Jade Abacus to do these divinations, surely General Yaong and Fu Xuan would know much more than she does, because they are much more adept at these kinds of things. At the very least, Fu Xuan was the one who literally wrote the book on not divining the aeons, so I don't think that this would be something that Fu Xuan wouldn't know. I think she should definitely know that there's something suspicious going on.
The Alliance already has the Swarm Author's remains.
So the Swarm Author is obviously Tazeron, the propagation, and we know from the end of the War Dance ceremony that the contents of Luocha's coffin was the body of Tazeron, the whole thing probably, just a fragment of it. And the visuals in this section also show that it seems Iron Tomb's goal is to destroy Nous. So that's interesting, because a lot of us thought that perhaps the scepter on Ampharius was aligned to Nous, but it seems that they're against Nous. And I'm very curious how that's going to play into the subplot with Polka Kakamund, because Polka Kakamund was also quite against the Genius Society. So I thought that her hints at appearing in Ampharius were going to result with her helping us take down Iron Tomb, but it could be the case that if Iron Tomb wants to take out Nous, that Polka Kakamund actually ends up siding with Iron Tomb. So that's curious.
To kill a god, we just need to temper the hunt's arrowheads with ruins.
So this is interesting. This, thanks to the Chinese content that was released today, we know that this is actually Iron Tomb. So we can see that they've got the four arms that resembles Kefali, it resembles Ligus, and it resembles the god mural in the Sky Castrum. The Chinese card also tells us that Iron Tomb doesn't have to be present in order to do their attacks, so that's probably how Iron Tomb has had any kind of presence outside of Ampharius this whole time, despite being trapped in Ampharius. And then it also tells us that their destruction is a pollution and a subversion of the logic of inorganic entities. It's definitely not the description of the anti-organic equation, but it could be something similar. It could be a different equation that attacks inorganic entities instead of organic entities.
Just need to temper the hunt's arrowheads with Ruan's golden blood.
So this could be why the wandering merchant, which should be Luocha, met with Ruan Mei during the quests with Fugue, and also that Luocha seems to have arranged for a meeting with Tingyun just before Tingyun was hijacked by Phantylia, which strongly suggests that despite, the claims that Luocha and Jingliu were not working with Phantylia, that actually that was a double lie, and he is in fact working with Phantylia to hijack Tingyun and then do whatever they're doing with Ruan Mei and the destruction. That could also mean that Luocha or Phantylia through Luocha is perhaps the source of this prophecy according to the Jade Abacus, but it's not a real prophecy of the Jade Abacus, but something else. More likely it could have something to do with the Omen Vanguard prophecies that's mentioned in the video description. So here, there's no talking, but the subtitles say that Salanova's legions are retreating. Is this a trap? And maybe she's carrying out an even more important order.
A
colleague told me that the Xianzhou Alliance is not our enemy.
So this is really interesting. In terms of the ships, you'll see that most of them are the Xianzhou ships that we're familiar with, but some of them actually have IPC logos on them, and this should be because the Yaoqing is actually kind of taken over by the IPC. A lot of their traditional buildings have been replaced with IPC buildings, so that's probably what we're seeing right here. The colleague that Salanova is talking about is, of course, likely Phantylia, who knows that Luocha has the situation under control with Jingliu. Whether or not Jingliu is part of it, I'm not exactly sure, because part of me wants to give her the credit that she would be aware of this strategy, that it's kind of all a scam. But, you know, at the same time, I can very much see someone like Luocha and Auto Apocalypse X be kind of just keeping her out of it and letting her believe what she wants to believe. According to the Chinese release for Salanova, she was actually once a follower of the Harmony, who was personally uplifted by Nanook, who destroyed her home planet. Interestingly, this should be about 2,400 years ago, just after Tyrannin and the cowboys of Penacony destroyed Ravager Zulu, because we know that Salanova was the replacement for Zulu. We also know that this all happened about 10 Amber Eras ago, and 2,400 years is pretty much the maximum for 10 Amber Eras. So that should be around the time that happened. And you can also see here that the puzzle pieces and her long dress and her long hair should all be references to the appearance of Xipe.
So why not join this great feast?
So this creature here is the Doomsday Beast, if you remember that from the very start of the game. It's made from Leviathan bones as well, and it can control both imaginary and quantum energy.
And observe how billions of beating hearts walk into irreversible demise.
Join this great choir and feast. Listen to the beating of billions upon billions of hearts, holding you in their embrace.
These previous lines have also been a reference to Xipe's appearance in the last Fables about the stars. Actually, it's quoted pretty closely. And it also seems that she can form the dripping eclipse out of just rubble, so that's interesting as well.
Indeed.
Okay, so this is of course Phantylia. She also has some more information released in Chinese. So apparently her confirmed target is the Hunt, which is very interesting because it appears that she's told Luocha and by extension Jingliu that she's going to help them, or at least, you know, they'll be able to defeat Yaoshe through some means. But Phantylia's own goals are actually to destroy Lan, so we'll see how that plays out, I guess. They also say that Phantylia has thousands of different forms across the galaxy, like a bunch of little clones, I suppose. And that she ignites the blind and fanatical fire of revenge through disguise and manipulation, which is pretty much exactly what's going on with Jingliu. And the text also reaffirms that the consequences of what she's done on Olofu are still not fully known.
Death is not a process, but the outcome. Let the ignorant hunter raise their bow. And
yeah, so this visual, you've got the hunter, and you can see in the background Phantylia is holding up her hand. She's got the shadow, and she very much looks like she's the puppet master of the situation, reaffirming that she's got the hunt under her control.
And kill what they love, what they believe in.
Yeah, so she's definitely using them to get to Lan. Again, very interesting to see how Jingliu reacts, if she is not aware of this, or if she is aware of this, what's going on with that.
And ultimately, kill themselves.
Okay, this location is quite interesting. I think, but I'm not 100% sure, but I think it could be the location from Tingyun's animation when Fugue released, how she was going down the river in her boat. And it would also line up with her motive of destroying the Xianzhou. So Phantylia obviously has direct connections to Sanctus Medicus through her preparations with Danshun. And as I previously speculated before at the end of the Bloomborn Scion series, that Ruan could have something to do with Sanctus Medicus as well. And that's interesting because Luocha was also in direct contact with Ruan Mei. And Ruan Mei has also studied the abundance, and she's appeared in the Luofu in her own trailers, and then of course she has been featured alongside some of the abundance creatures as well. Luocha also has the body of Taseront, and we know Ruan Mei has been actively trying to research Taseront, so once again, we can reiterate that it seems like Phantylia is definitely manipulating, definitely Jingliu and probably Luocha. Even if the Jade Abacus predictions were an actual thing that happened, the Jade Abacus was just a technology that they were inspired to craft through Nous. It's not infallible by any means. It's definitely probably not as good as the scepters, or even really the simulated universe technology. Just keep that in mind when you're watching this trailer, that a lot of it could be false. And not only that, but since it is a product of Nous, it could very easily be manipulated or overcome by someone like Iron Tomb, who is targeting Nous directly and has the ability to affect very technologically advanced civilizations.
So, what's the point in this process?
So this new voice is Asat Pramad. Sorry if I've butchered the pronunciation of that. He was previously teased in the list of arch enemies, which lists most of the Lord Ravagers. He's the one who slowly chips away at civilizations and has the patience of a chess grandmaster. And he is responsible for the collapse of many civilizations, such as the Red Babel and the Ogle Ring, the latter of which he apparently spent over 100 years meticulously organizing. It very much seems like he was a Mourning Actor or something turned into a Lord Ravager based on the things that he says. And the Mourning Actors are very much not a fan of Aha, despite Aha blessing them with the powers of elation. So that definitely explains why he seems to target Aha specifically.
Just for it to feel like a ceremony? Well, it's not like I have a right to complain about ceremonies. I mourn for worlds that can no longer laugh.
Yeah, so he says this because the Mourning Actors compose tragedies and sing elegies for dying worlds. This tower of what seem to be Sin-Thirsters and swords looks remarkably similar to the tower featured on Acheron's home planet that she sliced through. So that could be why Acheron has such a role to play in the coming story. We know as well that this tower was Acheron's, Kevin's end or finality sword. And our Phynon is also a Kevin, and he's a destruction-coded character. So there could be some correlation here between them with Nanook, because the destruction is very much similar to the Judgment of Shamash, which was a legacy more or less handed down by Kevin Kaslana throughout the Kaslana family tree. And with the very similar appearances, it seems like this could be a recurring theme for the Kevins, or even any Kianas that we get. And if you're curious about that, I talk about that a lot more in my Mighty video.
Do you still remember what happened?
So we don't have the identity of this Sin-Thirster. This should be a different Sin-Thirster to Tiernan from Penacony, of course. What's interesting is that this Sin-Thirster also seems to have seen a Lord Ravager, just like Tiernan had, because Tiernan obviously fought with Zulo, and now this one has witnessed Zephyro. So Acheron could be hunting down Sin-Thirsters that have had encounters with Lord Ravagers, which gives us maybe some clue as to what she's after.
I saw a spot of light.
Yeah, so this seems to be an attack straight from Zephyro through multiple planets.
Dim the star. Then existence itself was torn, leaving all.
Yeah, that's a very powerful attack from one guy. So this is Zephyro. He's also been teased in the list of arch enemies. If anyone here has played League of Legends, he actually reminds me a lot of Jin, because he is all about, you know, the beauty of destruction and just pure obliteration. And he has a very extreme passion for doomsday scenarios. So he's also capable of many disasters. He's ignited suns, he's created cyclones, and he can destroy protective barriers around civilizations as well. Very scary guy.
Only a despairing white, enveloping both entropy and time.
Okay, so this is interesting as well. So firstly, we know from his CN that he is targeting the Nihility. That is his target, as all of the Lord Ravagers seem to have a specific target. He's going after the Nihility. It seems like he was a self-annihilator at some point, and their style is very similar to the nothingness concept of the Nihility as well. It also seems like he can pierce through the body of IX and even leave scars on the Synthirsters. And interestingly, the black hole turned white is a reference to white holes. I'm pretty sure they are the opposite of a black hole. So instead of everything getting sucked in, everything in a white hole gets pushed out. Sometimes people also theorize that the white hole is the other end of like a wormhole if a black hole was to become a wormhole. So him turning the black holes into white holes symbolizes his ability to potentially revert IX. Very, very overpowered. This guy is very strong. So this is interesting as well because these golden circles look very similar to the ending of the first golden epic that we got for Amphorius. This dripping sequence as well looks very similar to the same dripping sequence that we get in the IPC myriad. Just to, you know, reaffirm that this golden river is likely the very same golden river that's controlled by the cast iron throne. As we know from the simulated universe lore, the cast iron throne was achieved through the peak of broadened cognition. Basically, get really smart and you can go there somehow. And the cast iron throne was capable of controlling the golden rivers. So the golden rivers actually predate Nanook by a very long time. They are very ancient compared to Nanook. Nanook simply seems to utilize it as a tool, but they're not inherently Nanook. If anything, they're probably closer to the power of the equilibrium. But I will expand on that in the video that I'm currently working on, where I'm going really deep into the equilibrium and what actually is the golden blood.
We salute thee, blemished one.
So the blemished one's definitely Nanook.
In defiance of the cosmic roots that bind all.
Yeah, so as I previously mentioned as well, it seems like each of the Lord Ravagers has their own aeon or aeons that they are targeting specifically. The Chinese cards that came out today as well tell us which aeon each of them are targeting.
We offer a magnificent ruin.
Together, beneath your gaze, we bear witness to a colleague's end.
So this is interesting. I'm not exactly sure what that creature is behind her, but it does seem to be maybe like a giant Doomsday Beast or something similar. We do know that she has a lot of the Doomsday Beasts from the previous shot of her, so it's probably a very special mega Doomsday Beast. And the bearing a witness to a colleague's end is likely referring to the events on Amphorius, and the colleague is probably Iron Tomb.
Be it coronation or collapse.
So when we're looking at this one as well, pay attention to the rectangular shapes. They're very similar to what we would see on the cores of the Fragmentum creatures, and also Silverwolf's digital ether editing and Pearl's editing water effect as well. So this seems to be some kind of recurring theme for like reality editing of some kind. And perhaps the theme with her outfit, as is Xipe, it's got something to do with manipulating the fabric of reality, or something along those lines.
The end of their yearning is the same.
Firstly, she is stunning, and again, you can kind of see her similarity to Xipe a bit, with just an inverted color scheme. The text here is also a big hint that whatever is about to happen to Iron Tomb on Ampharius, either way it goes, it won't really affect the outcome. Which kind of implies that freedom from Ampharius may even destroy the Iron Tomb that we know and create something else that maybe isn't necessarily a emanator of the destruction, or at least one of the Lord Ravagers. Okay, so this red creature is also one of the Lord Ravagers. This one doesn't yet have a name in English, but in Xian his name is kind of like the Casted King or the Forged King. We know now that he is apparently the one who creates the Antimatter Legion, and he's the one that was teased in the list of arch-enemies as the Lord Ravager that controls the antimatter and causes enemies to implode. We know that the Aeon that he's countering is Qlipoth, which is interesting because he bears a very strong resemblance to Qlipoth, so we'll see why that is, I guess, in a bit.
Just to witness?
Okay, pay attention, this is a really cool effect here. When he's on the left side, everything's black and white, but as he leaves this bubble, it goes back into color. With his aesthetic as well, he has a very, film noir vibe to him with the suit and the black and white and the hat tilted down like that.
That feels like formalism. Even if every genius in the cosmos dropped dead.
Okay, so this die may be a curio because we have a lot of similar ones that are curios. I also think that this is very likely a reference to Dungeons and Dragons, especially because I think the purple hand could be a reference to Critical Role, which is one of the more famous D&D runs by a bunch of actual professional voice actors. It's very well known. And there's a spell in that called Bigby's Hand, and it's purple. So I think this could be a D&D reference to that. I'm not sure if it would go beyond the aesthetic though. And just in general as well with the black and white thing, that could also play into his whole patience of a chess master thing.
Drop dead? What's that got to do with us?
I think his design is so cool. I don't know why, but it's making me think of I don't know if anyone else who watches my channel would know about Homestuck, but I don't know why he's just giving me the weirdest reminders of Doc Scratch. That's just a vibe I'm getting. I can't explain it. Maybe someone else will know what I'm talking about. If you do, please let me know why my subconscious is telling me this is Doc Scratch. But other than that, the explosion behind him is really cool. His vibe is really cool. I'm a big fan. I hope we can see him. I'm not sure if maybe this design would be too unique to be someone potentially playable, but if he could be playable, that would be really sick.
Still not enough for you? The fools will only flounder in tears after the...
Yeah, so the Mourning Actors are, of course, the enemy of the Masked Fools. So that's why she's telling him about the fools crying, like the Mourning Actors.
Wise have been buried.
So this text as well kind of implies that for some reason the Masked Fools need the Genius Society, that they would be upset if the Genius Society gets erased. So we can keep that in mind for future plots. This big purple creature here is the Sun Devourer. We have heard of them before from the list of arch-enemies. They're the ones who makes the suns mysteriously disappear without a trace. We know from their Xian as well that they are targeting the Ouroboros and also Long, the Permanents. And it also seems like they should be a descendant of a Leviathan, just like Ouroboros, and as I've hypothesized, Long is also probably a Leviathan, and that checks out. But there's also something very suspicious here going on with the smoke, because normally the smoke would suggest a sin thirster. So there's potential here that this Sun Devourer is actually a sin thirster version of a Leviathan, which is really curious.
Cease your chatter. The sun has risen from the end of time.
Okay, this is Zephyro again. He's so cool. His voice actor for English is also quite nice. It suits very well. So the end of time here should refer to the finality. As we know from the description, there are Omen Vanguard prophecies that 4 aeons will bring about the finality sooner. Kind of like 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, I guess.
When Ion Tomb finally breaks its shell, the erudition's calculations will meet the end.
So once again, reiterating that Ion Tomb is currently contained within Ampharius, and that when they break out, they are targeting Nous. It seems like Ion Tomb could be just like Pokakakumon and targeting Nous because of their influence on the finality, which is interesting because it seems like Nanook should also be bringing about the finality sooner. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out, if they might even switch sides, which that's where I'm placing my bets at the moment.
But who could say that Akavili on a new journey won't bring another salvation?
So this is obviously foreshadowing that the Trailblazer might turn the tides of what they were expecting to happen on Ampharius. And it also kind of implies as well that they think that the Trailblazer is exempt from the finality omens, which is curious.
Trailblazing always ends up igniting something, no?
This line is really interesting. I would like to remind everyone that during Golden Gears, when the Trailblazer achieves broadened cognition, and they basically get a gaze from Nous, and Nous answers one of the questions. The Trailblazer is asking basically, why is all of this misery and destruction and the war happening? And the only answer that Nous gives is Akavili. Nanook as well would have met Akavili on their home planet of Adlevin. We know that Akavili was sighted on Adlevin, presumably before Nanook destroyed it. And we also know from the Simulated Universe beta quest, when Thule gives the Trailblazer memories, thinking that they are Akavili, they show memories of Nanook's point of view, reaching out for a shooting star, and that shooting star is very likely Akavili. Or, at a minimum, the Astral Express. Hello, kitty cat. And I'd also like to remind everyone that in the Swarm disaster, there is that picture of a Nameless with hands that are dripping the golden blood. Remember, this is over 100,000 years before the birth of Nanook even, so that golden blood is very old. And the appearance of this person with the ticket of the Astral Express is, you know, very Kaslana-like. Looks very similar to Phynon and even Nanook. So there's definitely connections here. And then obviously Phynon also has the moniker of the Nameless King. So that feels very foreshadowy.
Then they'll achieve an even more majestic ruin.
Yeah, so that comment is very suspicious given the aforementioned similarities and connections between Nanook and Akavili. And just a reminder that Nanook was the very first Aeon to even gaze at the Trailblazer for no apparent reason whatsoever. They were just there the second we were born. And then obviously the Trailblazer also has a little bit of visual similarity to Nanook as well, with the hair and the eye color.
Prisoner who picked up Starfire.
This is such a cool shot. So the Starfire should be the golden blood and the core flames from Ampharius, of course. We also have things that suggest that the actual stars are machines, just like they are depicted to be machines in Ampharius. And subsequently that kind of means that the golden blood drips straight from these mechanical stars, potentially as some kind of fuel or something. But I will definitely be diving into that more in my next video, so keep an eye out for it.
If you are to become the first spark, then Come and leave the cave with me. And
Yeah, so leaving the cave is a reference to the allegory of the cave. It's a very famous Greek story about essentially if you have prisoners who are trapped inside of a cave and all they ever see is the flickering shadows cast by someone, you know, out of sight with a fire, they're going to believe that reality is what they are seeing in the shadows. And if you were to have one of them leave, as they leave through the cave and they see the truth for themselves, their eyes would burn and it would be a very uncomfortable experience for them. But eventually their eyes would adjust and they would think that everything outside was better. And then they would return into the cave and their eyes would be unadjusted again to the darkness. And the people inside of the cave, no matter how much they try to convince them that outside is better, they won't believe them and they'll think that they've been harmed and turned blind by their adventures to the outside, and then those people will be even more reluctant to leave the cave than they were before. And that may even result in them trying to attack people who try to save them from the cave.
in that fable about the stars, we'll pen the prelude of destruction.
Okay, Lygus looks insane in this shot. This confirms that Lygus is definitely working for the destruction. The Iron Tomb prisoner within Ampharis is definitely, you know, under his control. It kind of implies that it could be Phynon, but I think that Iron Tomb, you know, based on the visual that we saw previously, is probably Lygus, because Lygus also has the 4 arms. The 4 arms that are shared by Kefali. At the very least, the true body of Iron Tomb should be an Antikythera, just like Lygus is. So through Kefali's shenanigans, Phynon could inherit the moniker of Iron Tomb, but I doubt that he is just naturally Iron Tomb. I think his body as a human isn't exactly what we're expecting for Iron Tomb at this stage. It's possible that Phynon could also just be a creation of Iron Tomb and not necessarily Iron Tomb, because I do think it fits a Lygus description more at this stage. So that should be the end of the trailer breakdown. Hopefully I could help you guys understand the trailer a bit more. Did you guys see anything that I didn't see? Did you guys agree with all of my interpretations? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe so you can come back for that video that I'm working on, the one about the equilibrium. I'm going to get back to working on that straight away, so it should be out hopefully soon. Otherwise, love you all and I will catch you in the next one. Goodbye. And bye from Blue.